it's funny when your wife asks you, what does that actually mean? And it boils down to, well, I kind of buy stuff for the Marine Corps. So that's what I do now. Not quite as exciting as flying 53s, but it is what it is. So I'm from MCTSSA. You just heard a brief from Captain Felder about some of the stuff that our support division does, our warfighter support division out at MCTSSA. But MCTSSA proper, we can be best characterized by we are the Marine Corps' only test and engineering facility for C4I systems. So what that really means is Mark Corps Syscom owns us, and we test their stuff. So one of the things that that kind of makes us a little bit different at MCTSSA is that we have a lot of programs that we are responsible for, and we have to come up with sometimes ways to test those programs. With the climate of today, physical constraints, everything else, as you can imagine, government civilian jobs are not as common as they used to be. So that means a lot of augmentation with contractor support so that we can accomplish our mission of testing and engineering all the systems that the program office is fielding. So that kind of breaks me down into what this is about. So if you were to kind of categorize MCTSSA into 4 broad categories, you have networking, engineering, testing, and cybersecurity. And one of our contracting strategies that we are doing to try to relieve some of that contract paperwork burden is to do this multiple award task order contract, or a MATOC. All right, so I kind of talked about a little bit about this, the stuff on this slide, but realistically, we support more than 50 different C4I systems that are part of Mark Corps Syscom's programs of record. And we also support DoD and service level initiatives, which includes cloud experimentation and testing. And then we also have an innovation cell that kind of dabbles in experimentation with artificial intelligence and machine learning for some of those systems as well. We also hold the chief, the Marine Corps' principal engineer for cyber adversarial testing at MCTSSA as well. So as you can see, there's a very wide diversity of things that we do, from test to lab management to cybersecurity and adversarial cyber penetration to messing with machine learning and coding for artificial intelligence and so forth. And that means lots of different expertise that we need in our contract support workforce in order to make all that stuff happen. Each individual niche area would require a particular contract for service support per one of those requirements, and it's fairly rigid and inflexible to change those. If you want to add more people, take away some people, change the color of money that you're going to put on this contract, etc., add scope into it. So what we really needed was something that was a little bit more flexible, cut down some of the administrative burden and paperwork burden for our contracts team. And so this was one of our solutions, was the MATOC. Okay, so realistically, this multiple award task order, and I'll kind of go into it on my very next slide of kind of like how that works. But realistically, these are all the benefits of this. Faster task order development, which means, generally it takes about, especially for a larger support contract, we're looking at 12 months to get all the documentation prepared, get it through legal review, get it out on the street, do a source selection, and then finally award to a particular vendor. We're trying to cut that down to where we're turning around a task order for a new requirement and somewhere around 2 to 4 months, which gives us a lot greater flexibility to support my customer, which is the engineers and the testers that reside at MCTSSA, which ultimately turns around into better support for the program office and the faster they can get their gear out the door. Basically, this boils down into kind of 2 phases. There's a base contract, right? And then beyond that, there will be individual task orders. So the task orders are kind of the detailed, the detailed needs for work, detailed PWSs, as you would expect to see, whereas the base contract is more of like a broad general, that networking, engineering, testing, and cybersecurity flavor to it. One other thing on this particular MATOC is that we are limiting this one to small businesses. It has been deemed as a small business set-aside, so only small businesses will be able to compete for the base contract. All right, a little bit more on kind of how this works. Like I mentioned, there's kind of 2 stages to this. So the first thing that will happen is an RFP will be placed on FedBizOps, and everyone who's a small business that has a skill set that applies to one of those networking, engineering, testing, or cybersecurity categories can submit their proposal. And essentially, all the offers will be looked at, and you'll either be deemed acceptable or unacceptable for, in accordance with the source selection plan and the PWS in those broad general categories. There is no real limit to how many people we can deem acceptable, and once you are deemed acceptable and selected and awarded the base contract, then you become kind of part of our inner circle, right? And then stage 2 of this is the actual task order. So that's where the actual request for, personnel, a specific job will come into play, or a specific set of duties that would need to be fulfilled, and that will then only be competed within the folks that were awarded that base contract. 2 other things to say about this. Number 1 is that we will have a draft PWS for the base contract out on FBO anticipated this month in March. So if you are interested in that, be on the lookout for that draft PWS, and please provide us any comments where we can beef things up, or where you, in your opinion, don't think that we kind of got it right, or can offer something that we haven't thought of. And then the RFP, the entire RFP, is anticipated to be released through FBO again, sometime in the April to May timeframe. Okay. After that whole thing, the source selection for that and the base is awarded, then it will go into the task orders. And again, only the base awardees that were deemed acceptable in at least one of those categories would be eligible to bid on a task order. But that's where the real competition and down select to a particular vendor would come into play, would be on the task orders themselves. It should be said, each task order could contain, multiple functional areas, from networking, engineering, cybersecurity, or testing, and they're scalable in terms of period of performance, it allows us to be able to provide either a surge capability, or maybe we have some that are longer lasting. We could mod those. We could add another task order on top of that. So it just gives us a lot more options for our contracting strategy to allow MCTSSA to get the contractors it needs when it needs them. All right, and before questions, I just want to say again, those of you that are familiar with FedBizOps, the instructions that go out with the draft PWS will tell you exactly how to provide comments back to that and who to provide those to, which will be our contracting team at MCTSSA. And it will also provide information once the RFP goes out. It'll provide information on how to ask official questions to the RFP package, which will then be answered and released back to everyone. And the last thing I'll leave you with is, if anybody needs it, you can stop by the MCTSSA booth, which is right in front of all of these green vehicles here, and pick up one of our pamphlets. If you have any questions that you think of after this brief is over with, there is an email address on the very back of that. You can send that, and that will get to me. And if I can't answer it, whether I just don't know or if it's a legal type thing, then I will get our KO to answer that. Okay. So with that, any questions? Sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, we're looking at 8 days right now. 8 days, and I believe also ANCs, but don't quote me on that one.
Krista McHenry with CASC. I just wanted to clarify, I think follow up with your question. So it seems that the restriction for the small business prime contract holders is going to be restricted to 8As and ANCs?
Yeah, so 8As, correct. ANCs, I'm fairly certain, but again, don't quote me on that one. But for sure, 8As.
Is there the possibility or the consideration of opening it up to all small businesses?
Again, I can get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Again, if you want to grab that pamphlet and shoot an email to that email address and ask that exact question, I can find out the answer to that.
And as a follow-up, too, just to specify which NAICS codes that the small businesses would have to work under?
Again, I believe all of that will come out in the RFP package. Okay. I don't have it on me, but there are several, because this is very broad and spans quite a few. There's several NAICS codes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. And to the Colonel's point here, if you have a innovative solution to some of our contracting problems and how we can move faster, we would love to hear about it. This is one of many contracting strategies that we have to hopefully move in that direction. But this is not the only thing that's out there. So please email us and let us know of your good ideas. All right, thanks for your time.